Hi, I'm Heather from Heather Handmade, and today I'm going to teach you how to make the Sisu dragon costume. Sisu is the dragon from Raya and the Last Dragon. Sisu is a really fun kind of blue turquoise color with like shiny scales. So this costume is great because you start with a sweatshirt, you add some fur, you add kind of some scales, you add the spikes and the horns to make a really fun, easy DIY costume. We live in a place that's cold at Halloween, so this will be a really warm costume for her to wear. It will keep her nice and cozy, but she won't have to wear anything over top. Everyone will be able to see what her costume is. This costume isn't really that hard, except that fur, faux fur can get a little bit tricky to sew with, and this is kind of like a faux leather. So if you use different fabrics, if you use a shiny fabric and something more like fleece for the fur, it will be a lot easier to sew, but it is possible to sew it with the fur and the faux leather if you are willing to, go slow and work with the fabric. So let's get started. For this project, I'm going to do all of the sewing onto just a basic turquoise sweatshirt that has a hood. I'm going to use fur. This is kind of a blue fur. This is for the hood and the tail. Then this is kind of like shiny dragon scales. So this is going to be the tummy and the back spikes, and it's going to be the underside of the tail. You can get the free pattern on my blog for some horns. Sisu has 2 horns, so we're going to do 2 of this shiny scale fabric for the horns, and then there are some back spikes, and we are also going to use this shiny fabric and make 3 different sizes to go all the way down the back of the sweatshirt. So we're going to cut fur for the hood, and I'm basically going to cut 2 hood pieces and sew them on the seam here, and then sew them just like right onto the hood, just kind of covering it on top. I'm laying this fur on 2 layers on top of each other with wrong sides facing, and I'm going to lay this hood right on top. So I'm going to match up this cut edge here. This is a fold here, and this is a cut edge here. I'm going to line up the bottom of the hood with this cut edge. You don't need to have seam allowance down on this side because we are going to just zigzag it onto the bottom of the hood like that. And you're going to have tons of fur coming off as you work. Then I'm going to take scissors and I'm going to cut this hood shape, and I'm going to do like a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now take your fur pieces and place them right sides together like this. And you're going to pin this back curved piece and sew it together. Now take your fur again, and we are going to cut 1 tail piece, and I'm just going to do kind of like a big triangle shape. So I will fold my fabric in half so I can get it to be even on both sides, and I'm just going to do a tall and skinny tail. Now I'm going to cut a matching tail piece from the shiny scale fabric. And when I sew these together, since this fabric is, you know, so stiff and thick, I'm not going to sew it wrong sides together and turn it right side out, because this will have such a hard time turning right side out, especially down here where it's thin. So I'm actually just going to place them wrong sides together like this, and I'm just going to zigzag on each side, and that will kind of finish the edges of the fur and hopefully keep that fur in place. But then it'll keep the two layers together, so that will look like a nice little dragon tail. I'm not going to pin it because it will ruin this fabric by poking a hole in it, but I am going to clip it. Now with this remaining scale fabric, I'm going to cut out 2 horns. One's going to be small and one's going to be big. So I'm going to trace these pieces here on the back, and then I'm going to make a bunch of different spikes. Each one of these you will need 2 triangles to make 1 spike. I'm going to do the same thing as the tail. So I'm going to trace a bunch of these spikes onto this fabric. So if you're using regular fabric, you would line up the straight edges right sides together and sew it and then turn it right side out. But this fabric really is a little tricky to work with, and it doesn't turn right side out. So I'm actually just going to sew it with wrong sides together. It is going to have kind of a, you know, the seam allowance is going to stick out, but I'll put that in the back and I think it will look okay. So you're going to match up the straight edges and sew that seam. You're going to do that with both horns. Now with all the scales, you're going to match them up with wrong sides together and sew them. If you were doing regular fabric, you could sew them wrong sides together and turn them right side out, but this fabric doesn't work that way. Now when you sew these spikes, you are going to leave one side open. You're going to sew 2 sides, but you're going to leave a 3/8 inch gap at the bottom so that when it's sewn together, we can open up the bottom like this and just have that little seam allowance here on the side to sew it onto the back of the sweatshirt. Now I'm going to cut one more piece from the scale fabric, and this is going to be the tummy for the front. Now you're going to take the tummy piece that you cut and we're going to place it right in the middle. I can't pin it on because it will create holes in this, and I can't actually clip it like this, so I'm just going to hold it in place. and carefully sew around it. So we're going to take this hood piece and turn it right side out like this. Then we're going to grab the sweatshirt with the hood and we're going to slide this fur over the hood. So I'm going to pin around all of the edges. I'm not going to fold anything under. I'm just going to have it right here at the edge and at the edge of the neck. Once I pin that all on, I'm going to zigzag around the whole thing, and then you will have a fur hood just like Sisu. Now on the back of the sweatshirt, we are going to pin the tail right on the back. Just kind of overlap it over the ribbing and just sew a straight line across. Now we're going to add spikes to the back. So we grab all of our triangles and we're going to go biggest to smallest. So these are my big ones, then my medium ones, and then my small ones down here. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a spike and see how it opens like this. And we are going to place them on the back. I'm going to do it one at a time. I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to sew down one side and place each spike as I am going down, since I can't pin them on. And I'll go all the way down to the end of the tail. Once one side is sewn, then I'm going to come back to the other side and sew down the other side. Now that all of the spikes are attached and they, stick out really great, the last thing we're going to do is add the 2 horns to the top. So I'm going to place this here and I'm actually going to hand stitch this on. The short one goes first and then the taller one is right behind it. So I'm just going to hand stitch it right to the fur of the hood. And that's how you make a DIY Sisu dragon costume. I can't wait to see this costume running around on Halloween. Please share with me all of the costumes that you make on social media. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you have a wonderful day.